Hello everyone, Dylan here with probably a pretty long video, probably 30 minutes plus. This will be basically my life story, I guess, and why I'm blind and all these sorts of things. I'm gonna try to do it in like a chronological kind of good formatted way, but I'll probably jump around and hopefully everything will be okay. I have a new mic that I'm using. Hopefully it sounds okay. It's like, you know, one of those clip-ons, so. But without further ado, I guess I will start at the beginning. So, and I apologize for any noise outside of the room, like our cats are running around, but whenever I was born, on May 22nd, 1995, I was born 3 weeks early. And because of this, my mom had a dry birth. And she pretty much, she had a dry birth and like I was born 3 weeks early. She tells me that it was because of my doctor. So it's kind of my doctor's fault that I had bad eyesight, but it resulted in me having well, I was diagnosed with a thing called FEVR. That's the acronym. I don't know the full name of it because the words are kind of big, but it basically has something to do with the retina. It's kind of like your blood vessels in your eye grow abnormally and they pull on the retina and cause scar tissue and all sorts of fun things. But I think I was misdiagnosed because that's hereditary and I couldn't find anybody in my family that had it. And so I actually found another thing that is actually very similar to it, but like misdiagnosed between the two. But this one's called ROP and it's pretty much the same thing. And I actually do know the one for this one. It's retinopathy of prematurity, which is basically for being born premature, which is what I had, and so I feel like that's the more close diagnosis, but you know, I mean, but so because of that, it pretty much made my retinas partially detached, and my left eye was a lot worse, but my right eye was still bad. And so in the beginning, you know, we didn't really know that it was bad. And you know, and probably once I failed first grade because of it, that pretty much kind of summed it up. But I never really knew that I had an actual issue. Probably fourth grade was when I really realized it and probably knew, because I remember one incident in my fourth grade class. We were reading these books. I don't know what kind of book it was. I don't remember, but the print was really small, and my teacher asked me to she asked me to like read it, and I told her that I couldn't, and she actually yelled at me. She was like, well, if you don't read it, then you could go to the office. Just like that. And so, you know, as a little fourth grader, I was in tears, I was crying. And interestingly enough, next to me was a deaf person, and they had an interpreter, and the interpreter went and talked to the teacher. Like, he's not like, I am fourth grader, I will not do your bidding. No, nothing like that. She was trying to explain to her that he really can't read it, like, because of a physical kind of thing. Not that I'm being defiant, but because of that, you know, that had some hardship. But in fourth grade as well, a woman showed up and like had me do these tests, walk around school, stand at a distance from these paintings and stuff. And then she was from the school for the blind, and she pretty much was like, yeah, you're legally blind, which legally blind doesn't mean you're actually fully blind. Like, it can if you're in that category, but it just means that you have very bad vision. You're visually impaired to a bad degree. But so with that, she kind of tried to get me to use different tools and stuff, like giant books with giant print, and this you know, tube TV, you know, the bigger TVs back then, not a flat screen in this day and age. It had a camera with an arm to where you could zoom into you could zoom into the board, and I hated it because it made me stand out. One thing I never wanted to do in school, or like I never wanted to stand out in school. I just wanted to stay in the background and be like everybody else, and I just hated these things. But as time went on, in 5th grade, I don't really remember anything about 5th grade hardly. Nothing really happened. I don't even remember if I used the TV thing again. But I do know in 6th grade it came back, and it came back in as a flat screen, and it was on a cart. And in 6th grade, for my school, 6th grade was still an elementary school. So 7th and 8th and, you know, all the others in high school was in another building. This was 6th, and we had to switch classes because they were trying to get us ready to switch all 7 classes in middle school. So I did have to take the cart and roll it to the other class and roll it back, and it really sucked. And so that kind of sucked. And then fast forward to 7th grade, I only used it in math, luckily. And then I think in 8th or before my 9th grade, I kind of laid the law down on him. I was like, I'm not using this anymore. I'm not using this stuff. It makes me feel self-conscious. I just hate it. I don't like it. And so I didn't have to use them anymore. But with that, they I just kind of went through a couple more things of school. But I think before I kind of I'll go on a little bit more. So through 9th grade, everything was normal and fine. And I guess I should say that with my condition, I have multiple conditions. And so I actually did get bullied a bit. I never got physically bullied. So, no getting stuffed in lockers or getting a swirly or anything like that. But I did get mentally abused, mentally bullied. And there were a few different reasons. One was because of my bad eyesight. 2 is I was actually cross-eyed. When I would be looking at people and I'd think I'm looking at them, they'd be like, why aren't you looking at me? And I'm like, I am. But apparently I wasn't. So that's a thing that will make you self-conscious. And then we're not done there. I was born, I'm short, pretty much. I'm 5'4" as almost 24 years old adult. So you can imagine I was short as a kid. I was scrawny, weak, wimpy, all those things. And to boot, in about when I was 9 or 10, I got diagnosed with a tic. It's basically a form of physical Tourette's where I actually have a little bit of a twitch. I have it a good bit in my shoulders, and it can be in my hands and arms and neck, kind of in those areas. I did have some caffeine, so it kind of flares up a little more when I have caffeine, but I'm in most control of it for the most part. But so mix all those things together, and yeah, I was a target to be bullied. But you're born with what you're born with, and you got to make the best of it. But so with that, 9th grade, nothing really happened. And then I was really bad at algebra, I'll say that. And I ended up actually going to online school for my 10th grade. And the bad thing about that was I was one of the first ones to do this online school. And they didn't really have things together too well. Partially, I ended up... I finished almost one semester of 10th, but I failed. I was going to fail algebra. I was going to fail biology. And I was going to fail biology because we had these projects that were had these chemicals, and they were kind of hard to figure out how to do and whatnot. And I had to have help, and I just didn't have that. And those were a big part of the grade. So I failed biology because of that. And then English, I was failing English, not because I'm bad at English, but they switched teachers and I never knew what I was supposed to be doing. So at the end of the day, I just finally said, I've had enough. And I told my dad, I said, can I just drop out? Because I'm not going to go to college or, do anything at that point. And both my parents have dropped, are dropouts, I guess. But my dad is fairly successful. He doesn't even have a GED, and he is making $23 an hour. Working at Prairie Farms. He kind of proved that you just need to know how to do the job and put in hard work. And I think that is a great message, and that's one thing I love about my dad. And you know, hard work really does make the grade. But so, you know, it wasn't very hard to have them, you know, let me do it. I was probably about 17 at this point. But so that's before I get into, you know, a little bit more, I'm gonna go into kind of the things I did. Basically, you know, like if anything impaired my vision to do anything. Basically, I pretty much was able to do most things. Now, you know, certain very high visual things I couldn't do, but I went through a lot of different things. I basically was in band, you know, for like 3 weeks with a tenor saxophone, and then I didn't end up liking it. I ended up like skateboarding for like 2 years. You know, so my eyesight didn't really hurt me on being able to skateboard. And the one probably biggest thing, well, I also ended up learning how to play guitar and piano. And this leads into, when I was like 13, I actually started making instrumental music. I actually got a program called FL Studio. Of course, I was, you know, 13, so I got it for free, let's just say that. And I didn't know anything about music. I didn't know notes, music theory, anything like that. But I just made stuff that sounded good to me. Now, eventually, later on, I learned to play piano. I learned music theory, so stuff to help me make stuff better. But in the beginning, you know, that was how it was. And I pretty much did it for 9 to 10 years, right up until I went blind. And that was probably the most skill that I had worked on the longest, and whatnot. But so those were kind of like the things I could do and could participate in. And then I guess I'll get into how making friends was, you know, and lifestyle stuff like that. You know, I didn't have too much trouble making friends, believe it or not. I actually made friends pretty easily. Now, a lot of people didn't like me, and you know, and bullied me and stuff, but there were some that didn't care and were friends with me. I wasn't popular by any means, but so I was able to make friends and do most teenage stuff that they could do. And I guess that can lead into, why didn't your parents try to fix things before they went bad? And I think it's because by the time I was like 15 or 16, my left eye had went blind. I didn't notice it because I didn't ever use it. I just always used my right, but I eventually noticed it one day when I just closed my right eye and was just messing around with my left and realized I was blind, but I didn't really care. But it was like that was all I had. And if they were afraid that if it failed, you know, I wouldn't have sight, and I would have went blind a lot sooner, because I knew one day I would go blind. I just didn't know when. And so I guess, you know, we'll never know whether maybe it would have fixed it or not. But I mean, I'm kind of glad still that I at least got 22 years with sight, you know, instead of not being able to have a good teenage life. Not to say that I wouldn't have figured it out, but it might have been harder. But so that's kind of why they chose not to, you know, try to fix it then. But you know, with that, you know, I also dating girls, I didn't have too much trouble there. I wasn't popular or anything in that either, but I still dated people and whatnot. I don't know. So I mean, I didn't really fall too short, but I was aware and different. That's the one main thing. Like I said, all I ever wanted was to feel normal in school. I wanted to feel like, you know, I'm not much different from them. I just can't see as well. But I just wanted to be in the background, you know, be normal like everybody else. That's kind of how I felt back then, and I kind of didn't feel self-esteem was not good. Let's just say that much. But so I think I've covered everything with those sort of things. So I'll move on to why I went blind. So basically, years later, I actually did end up getting one surgery, a cataract surgery, to make things a little clearer. It didn't fix the problem because my problems were the partially detached retinas. But I did that, and then about a year later, I woke up in November, like it was mid-November of 2017, and I woke up and my vision was like tunnel vision. It was a lot worse than it normally was. I didn't think anything of it, so I just ended up, you know, brushing it off. I waited a day to see if it would go away. Next day, it didn't. So I then went to a specialist. They were like, yep, you are, your retina has torn and you're gonna go blind. You should get the surgery. Now, for a second, I decided I wasn't gonna do the surgery because I was like, I just was tired of fighting with this. I just wanted to let it be, let it do its thing. But she convinced me to do it. So I ended up doing it. But the thing was, I went to see this specialist an hour away. He was gonna be the surgeon that did it. And he said I had 2 tears in my retina. But the thing was, I got kind of screwed a little bit because they took like 2 or 3 weeks to get me in. Like they had trouble with my Medicaid, my insurance, because I was on disability and healthcare at that point. And they pretty much, while we were waiting on them, they were all, while we were waiting on them, they were like, oh, go see your normal physician. And I'm like, why didn't you tell us that in the beginning? So, and the thing is, the longer you wait to like treat the retina, the less likely you are to get your sight back. So I might have been able to, it might have been able to be fixed and salvaged if they didn't mess around, but you know, it is what it is. But so fast forward, when I kind of count when I actually went fully blind, I kind of count December 6th because that's when I had my retina surgery. So I have my retina surgery, and there was a second part to this, a second problem, but they put me under in the surgery, by the way. I wasn't awake for it. It was like a 3-hour surgery. But before the surgery, I had something happen that I don't know if people will know what it is, but it's called high eye pressure. And basically my eye was like had pressure and all that from something, and it ended up making pain in like the right part of my head. Like it made a lot of pain, like headache, and also not only that, but it made me nauseous, like throw up nauseous. And so I still had it after my retina surgery. So I was at the lowest of the low. You know, you're pretty much blind. You had that surgery. Your head, you know, you have this head pain, and then you would think, you know, just lay down, this nausea will go away. But when I laid down, then I got more I got more sick, like to my stomach, and I eventually did throw up and kept throwing up, and I couldn't hold down food hardly, and I felt weak from throwing up, and I was at the lowest point. I honestly wanted my life to end at that point. That was the lowest point of my life. But thanks to my girlfriend, I did get through it, and I guess I will mention my girlfriend now. I do have a girlfriend, and I have, as you've probably like heard or seen in the videos, I have been with her for over 5.5 years, and she has helped me through things. I don't know what I would do without her, and I love her very much. But so on top of that, like I said, I had the throwing up and all that, and then I go see a glaucoma doctor, which is at the same place the retina doctor was, an hour away. And pretty much the very next day, he like had me come in for surgery to get this thing called a shunt in. And this like metal shunt helps with pressure. So I had to do basically after just 2 weeks from my first surgery with the retina, I had to have another. They knocked me out for this and put it in the corner of my eye, like of my right eye in the left corner. And one thing I have to say about the retina surgery is that they put this stuff called silicone oil in, so it keeps the retina flat. And a fun fact, I've had it in my eye for like about 1.5 years now, and I'm not allowed to lay down. If I lay down flat on my back, it'll like push on my lens in my eye, and it'll cause problems if I lay there for too long. So I'm not allowed to do that. But because of that, they weren't able to put the shunt in good spots, because the corners of the eyes, they say like they rubs, and it normally doesn't work out. Well, fun for me. About, I don't know, after I started healing up a bit and I had to use a bunch of different drops, I ended up going back, and then they were like, oh, part of the, like this tube of the shunt is like exposed, and they said that could cause infection and whatnot. So I had to get another surgery to get this shunt closed up or whatever, or covered. And they put me asleep again for that one. And then I wasn't done. Basically now another part of the shunt was exposed, the metal part. So my glaucoma doctor is finally just like, we're just gonna have a surgery and remove it because it's not working. And he was gonna try to put it in the other side, but what I ended up doing is we decided that he would take it out and we would wait to see if my pressure would go back up. And basically, yeah, with that surgery, he actually kept me awake. And that surgery kind of sucked because I felt stabbing, stabbing pain in my eye and stuff. Like, it wasn't like excruciating, but it was pretty uncomfortable and hurt. So the numbing didn't really work as well because I had probably had 3 other surgeries before that. So probably getting immune to it or something. But he pretty much said had I gotten waited another week, it probably would have just fell out. But basically, shortly, I did get lucky. After he took it out, my eye pressure actually stayed down with me having to use 2 drops. I have to use 2 different eye drops, one when I wake up, one before I go to sleep, and they keep my pressure down, luckily. So I haven't had any more surgeries before that, but so it really, really sucked. I'll just tell you that much, that going through all that sucked. I had basically 5 surgeries in total, but pretty much 4 with those. So you can imagine how down I was and really depressed. And with that, because I had more to deal with than just blindness, but it finally worked out, and I had to get through the blindness stage now and learn and adapt and whatnot. And one thing I will say that's very important, you have to grieve. Let yourself grieve, even cry. You need to cry. One thing, because I had all the surgeries on my eye, I had a reflex that I couldn't cry, and that was a problem. So finally, months ago, I believe maybe the beginning of this year or late last year, I actually forced myself to cry. I had to break that wall down, and once I did, I felt a lot better. I got all those emotions out, and I think that's very important for people who are blind and going through what I'm going through. So just keep that in mind if you're going through it, and it will all be okay. You just have to find new things to replace the old, and also there are so many alternative ways to do things that you used to do. You just have to find them and figure them out, and hopefully I will help people find that out. I will help people figure it out and make things easier on them. So if you have any questions for me about that, blind people specifically, you can comment and I will see what I can do to help you. But it will be okay. And what I think is, through and through, I have gotten stronger through this, and you just have to get stronger and adapt and get better, and everything will eventually work out. And that's my thing with this channel, like I've said, is I want to make it educational for blind people and sighted people. I also want to make it fun, entertaining, and just great so it's a win-win for everybody. And that's kind of how I feel about it. But I think I've covered everything for the most part. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end this video off. If you guys have any further questions that you want to ask me about anything about this, then comment below and I will see what I can do to answer them. But, with that, I have been Dylan. Thank you guys for watching so much. Please like the video if you liked it, and consider subscribing if you really liked the video, and turn notifications on. Again, I really appreciate anybody who takes time to watch these videos. Really, really, thank you. You have no idea. But with that, I will see you guys in the next video.